I think even using technology, like Slack and things, sometimes Slack isn't working, but they don't acknowledge straight away. It should be the fact that there is an issue. You
Yeah,
shouldn't need to wait. 30 minutes for me, I think is too long.
yeah, I agree.
I think, being realistically, yes, you're not going to, as soon as you're monitoring tools, know that there's an issue, you do want to validate exactly what it is.
Yeah.
But you could be looking at 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I think that's an aim that everybody or any company is to communicate should be looking at that 10-minute, just the initial
Yeah.
posting. And then you can go into detail.
I
That might be 30 minutes.
it's so interesting you're talking about this because I think the biggest thing now is there's nowhere for companies to hide. And I'm not suggesting that companies are trying to hide, but in terms of social media is so prevalent. And particularly if you're in our world, when a lot of us are geeks, we love the technology
Yep.
side of things, we're very passionate about it and interested in it. People will make comment the second something doesn't work openly.
Yep.
And so there's two ways you deal with this. Either you control the conversation from both a public relations standpoint and just a good customer service standpoint, or everyone else does. And really, as a company, it's also on you to, I think, educate. It's different with consumers. I think it's harder in a consumer-facing business. Well, there are elements that mix, but with your communications, I think they expect less consumers. They just want to know that you know there's an issue and you're fixing it, whereas your business customers and in the commercial world will want far more specifics, and they're often holding SLAs and various
Yep.
contractual,
Yep.
which is absolutely fine. That's what they're there for, to ensure a level of service. But I think you almost don't have a choice. And I think just putting that initial comms piece out there, I think companies, you can't afford not to now, because it's only going to look negative. And what's interesting, though, we talk to people, is where communication goes out, and you've touched upon this, where perhaps something was over eager in terms of you communicated too early and it wasn't necessarily hitting your customers. But as we talk about in the global best practice in major incident management, is validating your major incident anyway. And if you've got a slick and robust period, you can do that within the 15 minutes before you even issue your comms. And that can be as simple as picking up the phone to some key customers and going, this is what we're seeing in event monitoring. Is this the case for you?
Yep.
Is this working? That's a really quick phone call.
Yep.
And so you can kind of avoid that, and that becomes a non-issue or a non-reason for not issuing comms. But I know I talked to a lot of like heads of service about this as well, and one of the current trends anyway is actually they say, well, we would rather put out communications and then have to retract and say, actually, it was a blip in event monitoring. But I appreciate that varies industry to industry, and also what you're communicating and the type of contract you have with your customer. I think those things are really interesting, but I think it just comes down to the fact that either you're gonna tell people, or they're gonna tell people.
Yep.
And so you
Yep.
almost can't afford not to now. But it's still pretty fascinating, the number of sophisticated and talented companies that can't get this right, or perhaps haven't spent the time or invested the time or had the time to invest in it, I think would be fairer.